Okay, welcome to Changing Behaviors, a Capstone proposal by myself, Brittany Grose, as part of Morehead State University's um, third year requirement as a doctoral student with the educational technology track. A little background about myself. I am a 60-year special education teacher in Jessamine County Schools, and that is just south of Fayette County, Lexington, Kentucky. I have served as a behavior coach at one of the local middle schools for the past several years. And in that is where I found the calling for my capstone. So as we will progress through here, you will notice that we are talking all about behaviors of students. And that will explain a little bit why I'm doing what I'm doing, because that's kind of been my background for several years. So here we go. Okay, the goal of my capstone is to identify and categorize common problem behaviors in classrooms that teachers need resources for managing more effectively. Oftentimes, in my position as a behavior coach, I heard teachers say, I don't know what else to do. I'm at the end of my rope. I'm frustrated. I'm confused. I'm lost. So that is where this was born out of. The second goal of my capstone is to create a resource that can be used in times of duress that provides teachers with a step-by-step guide in how to de-escalate problem behaviors and situations that occur within that classroom. Oftentimes, teachers don't voice their frustration until it's too late and classroom management has been lost, or it just was never there to begin with. And then we see students' academic support suffering as well. The last goal of my capstone is to design a resource in a manner that trains teachers to recognize and implement strategies effectively in the classroom through step-by-step instruction. Essentially, what this means is my goal is to train teachers to be more proactive than reactive in negative situations that involve student behaviors in the classroom setting. Here, what we have is a graphic that I want to share with you all. This graphic is important to me because Jessamine County Schools and Kentucky schools as a whole focus on multi-tiered approaches in addressing problem behaviors or behaviors in general, as well as their academics. So if you're in a school setting, you should be familiar with the RTI process. You will hear this multi-tiered approach called many different things. It's called school-wide positive behavior intervention and supports. It's called school-wide positive behavior supports, positive interventions and supports, positive behavior supports. Before it was all revamped, and examples all fall into that multi-tiered system of supports, which it's recently been highlighted as the front runner for behavioral and academic supports in the school systems, specifically in Kentucky and in Jessamine County schools. So just a little bit about the graphic that you see. The big green section highlights 80 to 90% of our population of students in the school setting. These are the students who in the classroom setting will get proactive and preventative supports from the teacher, and or if it's a collaborative teacher, such as a special ed teacher in the classroom. Then we focus on that yellow section that highlights maybe 5 to 15% of our student population. This is for the students who are a little bit more at risk than those classroom overall students. These are for the kids who maybe are tardy more frequently, or who are a little bit more impulsive in their behaviors. These students are receiving small group instruction. Sometimes we call that pull-out instruction, depending on the school setting that you're in. Sometimes that's in the classroom. These are the students who are going to be in those collaborative classrooms where they have a mainstream teacher and they have a special education teacher. These kids are getting a little bit more support, some individualization, some differentiation in their teaching as far as behavior and academics go, but it's not overall that big as the whole setting of the classroom goes. A lot of our classroom settings are meant to address those tier 2 students, but it gives focus to those tier 1 students as well. Lastly, you see that red section. That section is the section that most gets focused on as far as administration goes, as far as our RTI process goes, those are the students that we're really honing in on, that 1% to 5%. Those are the kids who are repeatedly seen pulled out of the classroom. They're not successful in your classrooms. They need a lot of individualized supports. They need a lot of retesting and reteaching. These are the students who we see a lot of reoccurring problem behaviors taking place. We have these students, all students in general in this diagram can be put into a certain box, but this 1% to 5% are the students who you're really going to see the reoccurring problems with as far as behaviors and gaps between their behavior and academic supports go. Pass, Cash, O'Brennan, Debnam, and Bradshaw in 2015 quoted, behavior that causes an interruption to the flow of academic learning and oftentimes is labeled as disruptive fosters a negative learning environment, halting needed instruction and cultivating peer interactions that are not conducive to the classroom setting, thus leading to a major concern for education. Here's the point of that. Oftentimes we find teachers are frustrated with the loss of instructional time due to problem behaviors in the classroom and the increase of behaviors taking place. The goal of my capstone is to therefore turn that around. I want to increase the instructional time taking place and decrease the problem behaviors that are occurring. Okay. Chatoya and Wheeler indicated that a proactive measure for eliminating behaviors is the use of positive behavior supports. As a behavior coach the last few years and working in a school that has implemented this process, I can speak very highly on how being proactive instead of reactive benefits not only our students, but our teachers and our faculty and our families and all of the stakeholders that are involved in this process for student learning. Next, I want to talk about a teacher herself. Rita Pearson is a phenomenal teacher, and she was a public speaker. She did a TED Talk called Every Kid Needs a Champion. I have shared that link with you all, and I would suggest that you all go and watch that. She was a fabulous educator who shined a light on the students who needed it the most. Okay. And then I want to point out that a rise in evidence suggests that teachers can impact the overall academic success in their classrooms through effective behavior management strategies, directly altering how students behave and interact in their classrooms. And research shows that as teachers give that focus with a positive support in place and with the appropriate resources, we're seeing a decline in the behaviors that take place. When students come in the classroom and they know that they can expect consistency and concise, clear expectations every day, all day, we're going to see a change in their behaviors. Okay. As teachers recognize and change their response to common problem behaviors in the classrooms, and students begin seeing consistency in the teacher responses, those behaviors will gradually start to decrease. I say gradually here because over time, you're going to see a change in your students. Is it going to happen overnight? Probably not. But it should already be known that if this student is struggling and you're not seeing a decrease in behaviors, that they should be progressing through those RTI tiers. Oftentimes, our RTI tiers are fluid, so meaning the student can go from tier 1 to tier 2 and back down to tier 1 based on how they're progressing in the academic and behavior alignments, okay? And those are not conducive to each other. So a student might be doing really well behaviorally, but academically they're still struggling. And that RTI process helps us to recognize that struggle, okay? Part of the resource that I want to create with this guidebook is also going to help with pinpointing the struggles that are taking place among our students. Lastly, Jessamine County Schools used this proactive strategy called PDSA. PDSA stands for Plan, Do, Study, Act. And essentially what it is a development of expectations for positive behaviors, a plan to orient staff and students to the expectations through training or modeling, proactive managing of how to monitor the expected behaviors, a corrective feedback system for reinforcing those behaviors, and a determined method to evaluate and analyze the outcome and progress. Focusing our efforts on halting negative classroom behaviors before escalations occur instead of managing that fallout from emergencies created by problem behaviors is one way that experts encourage teachers to rationally plan their management strategies. Plan, do, study, and act allows our classrooms to have an idea, a goal that they want to accomplish for the year. So if that goal is to have 20% of your population decrease in problem behaviors, that's what you're going to focus on. Then as you're doing that plan, as you're following through on that plan and you're documenting the problems that you're seeing and you're recording the outcomes, you can then study and analyze the data that you're taking. You can then identify the problem areas and address those accordingly. And then once you've acted all of that out, you can see what changes need to be made within the whole plan. Okay, so that's where plan, do, study, act comes in. In Jessamine County Schools, we use this plan as our PLC meeting. Teachers met on a regular basis to discuss the PDSA, and then they addressed how they could support their students academically and behaviorally in the classroom setting among that RTI process. How am I going to implement my capstone? Well, there are several ways that I think it can be addressed, and these are not fluid necessarily. It can be that we might do one and then follow through with another later on down the road. But for the purposes of this presentation, here's how I anticipate that we will implement it. Have an online resource that teachers can search through, essentially like a behavior library. If a teacher's having a problem behavior that's specific to her classroom or his classroom, they might be able to go in and identify what that problem is and then be able to research the step-by-step instructions. Having a bound book that can be shared during yearly trainings or monthly trainings within the faculty and staff. Using this as a resource provided by your curriculum coaches or your administration. Using it during trainings such as SEM or provided behavior meetings. Okay, for those restraints and seclusion times that we're really struggling with students' behaviors, it's going to be really important that you follow that step-by-step instruction of how to fix what's taking place. Using this as a training guide for building classroom management among staff and faculty. I think this is really imperative that we use this resource of creating this guidebook that's step-by-step and consistency of your words and consistency of your actions so that everyone is on the same page with how to go through with what needs to be fixed. Using this as a shared resource with students to let them gain independence and problem solve as a team. When I say as a team, you're a team with your student. So it's very imperative that you build that relationship with your student. And one way to do that is to be open as much as you can with your students. Obviously, for younger students, that's harder to do. But for the most part, some students who learn visually are going to do really good with seeing a step-by-step guide of how to fix something that they have a problem with. And lastly, it's that building block for relationships. When you're provided with a step-by-step guide, you're able to continuously come back to the same thing, which adds in, again, that communication and consistency and concise effort among everyone that's taking place. Okay. Lastly, I'm sharing the resources and the references that I have provided within my presentation. I appreciate all the feedback that you all give me, and I look forward to working together with you all. Thank you so much.